Have you ever been laughed at for something people thought was just an excuse, only for the truth to be so painful, so undeniable, that silence replaced every word? This is the story of a young woman who stood in front of a decorated colonel, dismissed as fragile and unreliable. But when her scars told the truth, scars carved by shrapnel in a war she never wanted, the room fell silent. By the end, even the colonel himself could only salute. Stay with me until the end of this story, because it will give you goosebumps. And before we begin, don't forget to hit subscribe, because here, we share the untold stories of courage that you won't find anywhere else. At 24, Maya Carter was nothing like the other recruits who filled the room at the military training center. They were sharp, confident, and carried themselves with a certainty that comes from years of preparation. Maya, however, carried something else: hesitation. Her steps were deliberate, her shoulders tense. It wasn't weakness. It wasn't laziness. But to those who didn't know her story, it looked like an excuse waiting to happen. Colonel Davis, a man with decades of combat under his belt, saw her hesitation and smirked. "What's your story, recruit? Can't keep up? Or do you need a note from mommy?" His laugh echoed through the room, drawing chuckles from the others. Maya's cheeks burned, but she stayed silent. She wasn't here to argue. She was here because she wanted to prove something, not to them, but to herself. During a drill, Maya lagged behind. Sweat drenched her face, her breathing uneven. When the colonel barked at her, she answered softly, "Sir, I have an injury from before. Sometimes it slows me down." He laughed louder this time. "An injury? That's the best excuse you've got? You think combat cares about excuses?" He turned to the others. "You see this? This is what failure looks like. Don't let it infect you." The sting of his words cut deeper than the ache in her legs. But still, Maya held her silence. What no one in that room knew was that Maya had already faced a battlefield long before she wore the uniform. Years earlier, when she was just 19, she had been in a foreign village with a humanitarian team, delivering medical supplies in a region torn apart by conflict. That day, a roadside bomb exploded near their convoy. The blast ripped through vehicles, tore through flesh, and shattered the quiet purpose of their mission. Maya had survived, but barely. Shrapnel tore into her side, her legs, her back. The doctors told her she was lucky to be alive. For years afterward, every step she took was a reminder of that day. The scars weren't just on her skin, they were carved into her very being. But Maya never spoke of it. She hated pity more than pain. Weeks into training, Maya's silence only fed the colonel's disdain. During one brutal obstacle course, she stumbled again, clutching her side. The colonel stormed over. "You don't belong here, Carter. You're wasting everyone's time." That was the moment something inside her snapped. She was tired of hiding, tired of pretending, tired of being dismissed. Without a word, she straightened, locked eyes with the colonel, and in one swift motion, she pulled off her training jacket. Gasps rippled through the recruits. Beneath the fabric, her body was a battlefield. Jagged scars ran across her ribs, twisted lines mapped her back, and thick, pale marks wrapped around her legs. The room went silent. The colonel's mocking expression froze, his laughter dying in his throat. "These," Maya said quietly, her voice steady, "are my excuses. I got them when I shielded a child during a bombing. I shouldn't even be standing here today. But I am, and I'll keep standing, no matter how many times I fall behind." Her words didn't tremble. They cut through the air sharper than any command. For the first time, Colonel Davis had nothing to say. His eyes scanned the scars, and something in his hardened face softened. He had seen battlefields, seen bodies torn apart by war, but never expected to find those same marks on the body of a young woman standing before him. He cleared his throat, looked away, then back at her. The smirk was gone. "Carter," he said finally, "you've been carrying more weight than any of us realized." But Maya didn't need his approval. She had said what needed to be said. She zipped up her jacket and stepped back in line, ready for the next drill. From that day forward, the recruits looked at her differently. They no longer saw weakness. They saw resilience. Even Colonel Davis treated her with quiet respect. He never apologized. Men like him rarely did, but the change was clear. His commands toward her carried no mockery, only expectation. And Maya? She trained harder. Every scar burned as she pushed her body, but every push was proof she refused to be defined by pain. She didn't want pity. She wanted purpose. Months later, during a live training exercise, a sudden accident occurred. A recruit was trapped under collapsed equipment, screaming in pain. Most froze, unsure what to do. But Maya didn't hesitate. She sprinted, ignoring the fire in her muscles, using every ounce of strength to lift and pull the injured soldier free. Her scars ached, but they didn't stop her. When the dust settled, Colonel Davis stepped forward. His eyes met hers, and in front of the entire unit, he raised his hand in salute. No words, just respect. Maya's story spread quietly across the base, whispered in the mess hall, and remembered during late-night talks. She became the symbol of resilience, not because of her scars, but because of the way she carried them. She never boasted, never complained. She let her silence and her actions speak louder than anything else. And the colonel who once laughed at her excuse, he never laughed again. In fact, he often used her as the example. Strength, he would say, is not about perfection. It's about standing when you've already been knocked down. So, the next time someone doubts you, mocks your struggle, or laughs at what they think is just an excuse, remember Maya. Remember that scars, whether seen or unseen, tell stories that are louder than words. They tell the story of survival, of endurance, of unshakable strength. And that's why when silence fell over that room, it wasn't weakness. It was respect. If this story gave you goosebumps, if it reminded you that true strength doesn't always roar, it sometimes whispers, then make sure you subscribe right now. Because we share more stories like this, stories of courage, resilience, and the human spirit that refuses to break.